We're about to start the holiday of Shavuos. There's a very popular custom to stay up the entire night on the first night of Shavuos and study Torah. The Magen Avram, one of the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, explains that the reason for this custom is that when the Jewish people received the Torah, that morning they overslept. God himself had to come around and wake them up. So to fix their mistake, we stay up the entire night. This is a very strange explanation. It's based on the Medrash, but the Medrash needs to be explained. How is it possible that the entire Jewish people overslept? Especially receiving the Torah was the most important day, was the most important event of their lives. You know, many people, when they have a momentous occasion in their lives, a bar mitzvah, a wedding, starting a new job, they're so excited that they're not able to sleep. And here, the Jewish people are about to accept the Torah. They're about to have divine revelation, and they oversleep. How is such a thing possible? Rabbi Shimon Schwab gives a beautiful explanation. He says that the Jewish people didn't intend to wake up, just they overslept. The Jewish people intended to sleep through Matan Torah. Not that they intended to miss it, but they thought that the way they would experience Matan Torah, the way they would experience that amazing divine revelation, would be while they were sleeping. And the truth is that there is much basis for such a concept. Many of the prophets, when they received their prophecy, they didn't receive their prophecy while they were awake. They received their prophecy while they were sleeping. They were not able to relate to such a spiritual experience as prophecy in a more physical state. Even the prophets who were awake while they were receiving the prophecy, many of them had to enter a meditative state to remove themselves from the more physical aspects of this world. And that's what the Jewish people thought they would do as well. They said, while we are awake, while we are more engaged in the physical world, we're not going to be able to relate to receiving the Torah. We're not going to be able to relate to divine revelation. But God was giving them a very important message. God was telling us that the receiving of the Torah and Torah itself is not something that should be devoid of physicality. Receiving the Torah and experiencing the Torah is something that's supposed to be experienced even within physicality. The Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, says that the highest level of spirituality is not a state that is devoid of physicality. It's a state where you take all the physical things in your life and you make them spiritual. Where you take the mundane activities in your life, so to speak, and you use them for divine service, thereby elevating them to a level of spirituality. And Hashem wanted the Jewish people to experience the receiving of the Torah in this physical state, so that they would understand that spirituality is not about removing ourselves from physicality. It's about elevating physicality. On a practical level, this means that our Judaism is not limited to what we do in Shul. Our Judaism is not limited even to just the learning of Torah and to the keeping of the mitzvos. Our Judaism is something that affects every single thing, every mundane activity in our lives. Even the most physical actions that we do and the most physical of our possessions have the potential to become spiritual. When we take food and we make a bracha, we make a blessing on it, and we take that food and we eat it at a yontif meal, that food is no longer spiritual. That food becomes something physical. When we sit on a chair, when we sit at a table and we study Torah, so the chair and the table and even the light in the room, because they're helping us and aiding us in our divine service, in our studying of Torah, we've now turned the table and the chair and the light into something spiritual. That is the amazing power of the Torah. And this is why the Talmud tells us that although on all holidays, the way we celebrate the holiday is not only by studying Torah, is not only by going to shul and davening extra, but it's also through the physical pleasures, eating food and relaxing, that's part of the celebrating the holiday as well. The Talmud tells us this is especially true on Shavuos. Shavuos is the holiday when we got the Torah. Shavuos is the holiday when we got that ability to be able to take physical things and make them spiritual. So it's so much more appropriate on Shavuos to do that, to engage in physical pleasures, the physical pleasures of this world, not for their own sake, but to use them in the pursuit of spirituality and thereby elevating them into spiritual actions and spiritual things. On Shavuos, we read the story of Rus. One of the reasons we read this story is because Rus's entrance into Judaism is something that's supposed to serve as a model for how it's supposed to be done. Rus understood exactly what it means to accept the Torah and to enter into God's covenant. Rus got it. And if you look at Rus's defining moment in her conversation with her mother-in-law, you'll discover an amazing thing. Rus says to her mother-in-law Naomi, she says, Ki asher talchi elech v'asher tolino elin. She said, where you're going to go, I'm going to go, and where you're going to sleep, I'm going to sleep. If she wanted to tell her mother-in-law that she was going to be a good Jew, she could have said, I'm going to keep Shabbos just like you, I'm going to keep kosher just like you, I'm going to daven just like you, I'm going to learn just like you, I'm going to keep all the mitzvahs just like you. But that's not what she says to her. Because Rus understood that the keeping of the Torah is much more than just the keeping of the mitzvahs. It's much more than just studying the Torah. Keeping the Torah and accepting the Torah into our lives means that it's something that even where we walk, even where we sleep, has to be defined by the Torah. And even our walking and even our sleeping becomes something spiritual, becomes part of our divine service. This Yontiv, again, we're going to say Yiskar for those who say Yiskar. And Yiskar is an opportunity not only to remember those in the past, but there is a very strong custom to give tzedakah before a person says Yiskar as a merit for those who have passed. I think this is just another example of our physical actions, the mitzvahs that we do, but even in a more physical way, by taking something physical like money and using that for divine service, serves not only as a merit to ourselves, it serves as a merit to those who have passed as well. And it doesn't end with giving of tzedakah. Anything we do, anything we accept upon ourselves to change our lives, to better our lives, to make ourselves more spiritual, can serve as that merit for those who have passed. As we mentioned many times, Jewish holidays are not just about remembering the past, but they're about re-experiencing it. And on this Shavuos, when we re-experience that revelation on Mount Sinai, that revelation that God wanted us to understand is not just a spiritual thing, but that spiritual revelation is something that penetrates into our physical lives as well. Let us use those opportunities to elevate every single thing in our lives. Chag Sameach.